Hey guys, it's that time again, a new Take Control talk of the week. I wanted to remind you at the end of the talk, be sure to go in to the Take Control handouts and download that so that you can get even more out of this information through the week. So sit back, relax, and get ready to take control of your health naturally. Today we're going to talk about finding your flow and what that means in relation to bioindividuality. Bioindividuality basically means that everybody is unique. And I liken this to a snowflake because I just find it tremendously fascinating that every single snowflake is unique. But that's how it is with people. So just as there are 6 points to a snowflake, I've developed 6 points to helping identify your bioindividuality. And these points are personality, pace and rhythm, priorities, biochemistry, emotional depth level, and environment. Now, before looking at these 6 components in more depth, I think I really need to enter the important disclaimer here that nobody is wrong or bad. We're all just different. And everything that we're going to discuss has its own strengths and weaknesses. So it's important for us to remember moving forward that we all have imbalances that we can work on. But nobody is wrong or bad. Just think the key word here is different. So when we're figuring out our flow, the first thing we want to identify is our personality type or our temperament. There are several different forms out there that you can follow, but I like Galen's 4 temperaments, the choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholy. But I also like the way that Smalley and Trent have coupled those 4 different temperaments with animals. The lion, the otter, the golden retriever, and the beaver. It's just a fun way to kind of analyze and understand different personality types. And if you go to our handouts section on our website, then you can download the handout where there's a link to a test so you can determine which personality type you are. And it's a lot of fun because then you can start to see what temperaments your friends have and your family and your coworkers. And it makes for a much better work environment and helps with friendships when you understand these different personality types. So try that out. I think you'll find it's a lot of fun. The second point that we need to identify with our flow is our pace and rhythm. We all have a different speed at which we process and move. Sometimes I have to remind myself not to rush my husband and constantly be telling him to hurry up because he and I have different paces. And when you can understand that, and more importantly, when you can accept that about yourself and others, it just leads to less stress and more cooperation. Kind of along the same line is your rhythm. And a lot of times throughout my life, I had people who didn't realize it, but they were kind of trying to squash my rhythm. And it took me a while to really understand this until one day I got a visual of a circle and a line. And I realized that my creativity and my energy is kind of circular. If you picture the upside of a circle, kind of like you're coming up the hill of a circle, that's when my creativity really bursts. I get an idea, I can see how to implement it, I have from start to finish, and I have all of the energy to make that happen. And I just push and push until I have this fantastic product to look at and see. But then when I'm done with it, I kind of start coming down the hill, kind of the lower half of the circle there, and I have downtime where I'm not really creating anything. I don't have that energy and that passion like I did before. And some people can see that as a bad thing or call it wrong. that you're not staying the course, you're not picking one thing and sticking with it, but it's just a different flow, a different rhythm. Conversely, there is a rhythm of a line. I got that same visual at the time of the circle. So these are the people whose energy and creativity is more constant. It's more steady. They have a plan, they have an idea, and they can just maintain that without a lot of spikes and dips in it. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just different. So when we understand our flow of creative energy and we understand other people's, we can really appreciate that and help them to cultivate those flows a little bit better. And that way we don't really squash anybody in the way that they flow best with their creativity. Another point that's very valuable to understand about ourselves with our flow is our priority set. And an interesting point is that sometimes we think we have a certain set of priorities, but Gandhi said if you look at your actions, you'll see where your priorities lie. And this one's kind of hard for a lot of people to assess in themselves, and even harder for them to accept in other people. We have a very strong tendency to be judgmental of people's priority sets, especially if they don't line up with our own. So it's good to figure out where your priorities lie and do it objectively. So I've categorized them into 4 quadrants. The first is relationships, the second is projects, the next is materials, and then activities. So your relationship-centered people, that's going to be where their time, energy, effort, their priorities fall with relationships and building their life around relationships. Project people are going to be the ones that are really devoted to their work. They've constantly got that project that they're working on. Material-centered people, who are probably the most harshly judged, are people who like material things. They put their effort and their time into acquiring tangibles, money, furnishings, niceties of life. And then there's activity-centered people, the ones who are constantly involved in sports or hiking, things that where they're constantly being active. This could be with people or on their own. So when you can look at each of those quadrants without judgment, and you can see where your priorities lie and understand that about yourself. And then you can also understand it about other people. Like we said, nobody's wrong or bad, but sometimes if you're building a relationship with someone like a marriage or a business partner, you want to make sure that your priority sets match, or at least that you're willing to understand and accept and work with those priority sets that may be different. Another snowflake point is biochemistry. And I could literally talk for days about biochemistry just because it's so inclusive. This is really everything that's going on within our body. Our genes, our hormones, our organ health, our immune system, blood chemistry, nutritional health, metabolism, neurotransmitters, our Ayurvedic doshas. I mean, this is just the universe that's inside each person. And the more we understand about those things that are going on within ourselves, the more we understand our flow. When we have an imbalance in our neurotransmitters, that's certainly going to affect the way we operate. When we're fighting with a low immune system, that's certainly going to hinder our ability to handle stress, which therefore constitutes a flow that may be different than those around us. So knowing that and understanding that's very important. And then we have something called emotional depth level. Not a lot of people really think about this, but as a life coach, I've certainly seen it cause a lot of problems within people's relationships. There's people who are very, very deep, and then there are people who aren't very deep. And we have a tendency to judge those people who are different from us. The person who's very emotionally deep might call names to the other person that's not, calling them shallow or cold or clueless. And the less deep person might call names to the other person, like overly sensitive, a crybaby, overreactor. But that's because we haven't accepted and learned about the different levels of depth that every person has. And it's really very interesting because within depth level itself, there's 5 different components of emotional depth. One is susceptibility, range, reflection, intensity, and eloquence. So if you go to our handout, you'll be able to click on a link where you can learn so much more about this and actually take a test and find out where you fall on the emotional depth scale. And then you can have your loved ones do the same thing. So just simply seeing the difference on paper can really help heal some hurt feelings, some bruised egos. When you understand your emotional depth, you can really flow better within it, and you can have more grace for those around you. And lastly, we have environment. And this just incorporates so many different components as well. You've got your social and financial relationships, the technology that you were exposed to, your education level, and all of your life experiences. This is basically everything that's outside of your body. And we hear a lot about the nature versus nurture debate. And what we've seen is that our environment plays a huge role in shaping who we are and how we view the world. So kind of looking at those factors in our life will help us kind of determine our flow as well. And just like understanding our own flow and how each one of these components affects our bioindividuality, it's equally as important to understand how all of these different characteristics are shaping those around us. It makes us so much more graceful, so much more forgiving and understanding, and just easier to get along with when we understand the differences in all of these areas. And just to reiterate one more time that nobody is wrong or bad, we're all just different. And within all of these components, there's strengths and weaknesses, and it's our responsibility to work on ourselves, not on other people, ourselves in the areas where we have imbalances. So it's my belief when you really have a good understanding of your flow that it relieves a lot of stress and a lot of pressure in your life. You don't constantly feel like you're working against yourself, and it helps you set boundaries with other people. It helps you identify jobs and positions within jobs that you're best suited for, and all of that adds to a more content and happy life. And of course, when you reduce the stress, then you're leading yourself to better health and wellness. So I hope that you'll take the time to go to our website and download the Take Control handout that's associated with this, so you can take the test and find out if you're a lion or an otter or golden retriever. You can see what emotional depth level you are and those around you. You can kind of analyze yourself and see if you're a circle or a line. You can find ways to understand your body chemistry and really nail down your priority set. I really feel like it's going to help you a lot, and I'm excited for you to get started. Thanks for listening to this week's Take Control Talk. Be sure to join us again next week.